We are here with North Coast, and I'm extremely excited. Geek is the best word to possibly use. Today we have Leo from Aficionado, Humboldt, and oh my goodness, I'm a huge fan. So, first off, let's talk about Aficionado. Obviously, it started off in Humboldt, but like
Mendocino.
Mendocino. Oh, okay.
We got our start, and then we kind of grew into our own when we moved to Humboldt. You know, they're like right next to each other.
Yeah.
I was brought up to Mendo back in the day. Like I started out in a dispensary, so I think it's cool. We're like here at House of Dank headquarters.
Yeah, full circle.
Because my first start was I got out of the army. I was like fresh from Iraq. I was like 8 months out of Iraq, and I'm in San Diego. And my brother's like, hey, there's this position. I'm working with this OG from Mendo who opened this shop down in San Diego with Eddie Lepp. Do you want to be the head of security? And I was like, yeah,
absolutely.
You know, because I had my sidearm license and I was trained, so he felt comfortable with me being his head of security. So it's like I got my start at a dispensary, and then hearing the bud tenders talk. Like we had like this old white Rasta dude.
Yeah.
And whenever someone didn't know what this weed was, like we'd give it to Jaja, and he'd go, "It's OG Kush. That's fucking Blue Dream." And that's like, it blew me away. It like blew me away that you could do that. Like as a newbie.
Yeah.
And, you know, like my first taste of the game. So like, yeah, we started out like, you know, me working at a dispensary, and then when the sheriff shut us down in San Diego, we went up to Mendocino because, you know, it was like, you know, 08, 09 was still really kind of sketchy in California, right? Like we were at a dispensary in the middle of downtown in San Diego. It was called the Star of San Diego. And we had like, you know, all walks of life coming up to the dispensary, like Mexican gangsters, gangsters from Lincoln Park, like Mitchie Slicks dudes, you know, like pulling up on the dispensary. And so it was like, it wasn't like the safest place. Right?
Yeah.
So when the sheriff shut us down, there were still accounts open. And so Mike was like, hey, we got shut down. Sheriff's confiscated everything. You down to come to Mendo with me and be my head of security up there. Watch my back, make sure the harvest, and I'll teach you everything. I'm like, hell yeah, dude. I'll roll with you till the windows fall off, till the wheels fall off, you know? So I'm like, just really
seems a little safer
to be here. Yeah. So I thought it was cool about coming here because like I'll never forget my roots. And that's why I always try to like treat bud tenders and people that work at dispensaries with the highest respect, right? Because you never know what that person's going to be, who that person's going to be in 10 years, right? They could still be a bud tender 10 years from now, or that could be like their entrance into the game. Where like, if you're hungry enough, you could go anywhere. Like if you're hungry, you'll always find a way. So when Mike brought me up, like this dude was a true mountain man. Like he hitchhiked out to Mendocino in 78 and ended up making millions growing weed underground. And so, you know, and he's been breeding for like 40, 50 years, you know, and he said he started making seeds when he was still living in Florida. And so when he took me up, I worked basically for free for like 2 years. He paid my food, gave me a place to live, but he taught me the game. So it was like 2 years of apprenticeship of like suffering because he had this huge fucking mountain house that he built and he milled his own wood. But half the house didn't have windows. So there's like me, some workers, and Mike, and we're all sleeping in sleeping bags. And like, this could be Gucci-ass house on top of the mountain. But it's all about growing the weed, right? The weed was always way nicer. The grow was always way nicer than Mike's house. So there was like a lot of sacrifice that went in that. That's why I'll never trade that for the world. But he taught me breeding. He taught me growing. 2 years with him. I grew with him. And then my first year on my own, I won the Emerald Cup. And like I attribute all that to OG Mike and my brother. Like, I wouldn't have been here without OG Mike. I wouldn't be here with my brother. That year I won the Emerald Cup, I met Frenchie. He like I got off the stage and he stormed me. He showed me like the loudest jar of hash I ever smelled in my life. And I was like, dude, you're my hash guy for life now. And then it was just like, it was weird. Like it was like we picked up on this friendship we had in like in a past life. That's what it felt like. You know, so yeah, it's kind of like the roots of Aficionado. Like,
yeah, dude.
I'm sorry, like
no, hell yeah,
as cogent or coherent as I wanted.
Yeah, no, that was perfect.
Travis got me smoking.
Yeah, that dude just. I love hearing. I just love history in general, and so just like getting actual like drug veteran history is something that's mad important to me, because like the drug war is a serious thing that has like impacted millions and millions of people. It's just like, even the fact that y'all had to grow underground like that, and the ways that y'all, like, you had to learn, it was crazy. Because now, like you said, you get to see like bud tenders now, that being like an actual like introduction and stuff. And it being way more legal, it less places being raided by sheriffs and the FDA and stuff like that. It's still happening, but at a way less of a clip, you know.
It's a lot less risk.
Yeah, exactly.
The risk is still there.
It's still there. Yeah. Coming up from that era, how have you just seen the, just like kind of overnight, how like pretty much anybody can just pop a tent up, just like pop their own grow up, and it's even safety wise, like in the community, like normally you'd have to worry, like I was
thinking about that on the way here.
Yeah,
because back in the day when me and you first started, and like back when Travis first started and people at House of Dank first started, who founded the company, it was very dangerous when we first started. You know, it was really hard to get in the industry. You either had to be invited into the game, you had to be sponsored in the game by someone who was like an OG or a mentor to you, or you had to be papered up enough and have the big enough balls to just
do it,
put your nuts on the table and just go for it. You know, but now, and that was difficult getting in the game, because if nobody knows you, then it took you a long time to get the reputation for either growing quality and having the reputation for being solid, being a person of your word, and especially having the reputation of like being right with your money, right? Because a lot of the relationships that are in the game start out with businesses helping other businesses underground. And if you're helping people move packs, it's like, you better be on point with that money. Shit happens. So if you lose a sample or you lose some packs, you have to, you need to be
account for that.
And that becomes a part of your reputation. So that was like the difficulty of like getting in the game and becoming a part of the community back then. And that's still kind of a thing, but right now, what you said, with anyone could pop up a tent. So it's like, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the small growers that just want to pop up a tent and say, hey, I'm here, right? Because a lot of people that come from my era and the era before mine, we got chips on our shoulders. You know, where we feel like, oh, well, we've been here, there's all these fucking new guys, you know. It's like they have to deal with that. So I see that they have to deal with older growers that have a chip on their shoulder, that don't feel that they paid enough dues to be a part of the game. But what matters is, then, like, because I have a problem with that kind of looking at things, because all of our paths are different. The common denominator is that we love weed, and we're passionate enough to show up every fucking day, whether you're showing up to a tent, a room, or a commercial facility. It takes dedication to get the fuck out of bed and show up, and that is distilled from a love of the plant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course there's financial gain and all this, but it's that love of the plant, that devotion and dedication to something that really should bind us together. So I try to overlook, like, I get inspired a lot from the newer growers, because there's so much information online. You remember like 10 years ago, or 10 or 12 years ago, if you went online trying to find growing information, it was really hard to find good information. Like now you could chat GBT grow information. You can go on Google, you can go on IG and watch some of the best growers and just see how they build out facilities. Remember back in the day, if you went to someone's grow, like, you were trusted.
Yes.
And then you could be like, okay, this is how this guy's doing it. This is how, but now the information's out there where, like,
free source. All
those guys are helping. At the end of the day, those guys are helping elevate the game. The new growers help elevate the game, because they're looking at things from a different perspective than us older growers, you know, never looked at. Some of us are stuck in old ways. Meanwhile, these newer growers have access to all this crazy information. They have the ability to kind of like make music that sounds a little different. Like for me, weed's like music.
Absolutely.
You know, like, I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to school, but I vibe with the plant on a level where the nose and the smells and the presence of the plant translates into sounds for me. And I feel like I can hear the plants. So yeah, that's like,
no, I love that ideology a lot too, because how I view it is that you don't go to war forever. It's like, there's supposed to be a point of it, and so all the trials and the tribulations have to lead and mean to something. And so all the time that was wasted, like having to be secret and then gaining all of these anxieties, there's a whole generation that doesn't understand that. So now they can move so creatively and freely that the previous generation just had no access. There was no access. Yeah. So that's literally, it's like, no, you get to actually live to see your actual living seeds sprout. It's not just the fucking cannabis seeds. It's the people seeds. Like, wow, we actually created this. We can't hate on what our plants. We should be happy that our plants are fucking growing. And guess what y'all can do as OGs? Y'all can now be like, all right, that's Kobe, that's Bron, that's Jordan. And now that's the return. Instead of being like, y'all, you didn't have to do this, you didn't have to do that. Good. Y'all can just grow. Grow. Have a love, develop a better relationship with no anxiety. And then people like you, people like Travis, can have so much larger of a greater pool to be like, wow, there's some great shit out there. I would like to rock with you.
I feel that so much, man. I feel like the politics removes a lot of the magic.
Yes.
And a lot of the enchantment that the plant brings to just life in general.
Yes.
Because I think if you just forget about the politics, I've experienced this as a breeder, right? Well, I'll work with a plant from a breeder that has a reputation that's highly controversial. My position has always been that person's not the plant. Right?
Absolutely.
No one created the plant. Basically, I look at myself as like, we're just worker bees. And the plant allows us to be able to work with it, right? So it's like, people are like, why are you working with that dude's work? It's like, wait. We're talking about a living being right now. The plant is a living being. It's a sentient living being.
Yes.
It has at the University of Bonn in Germany was the one who developed this, the field of plant neurobiology. And what they've established and what they've discovered was the plant has an integrated neural network in its rhizosphere and its top end. The plant was very aware, right? It's been on the planet longer than humans, right? So it has more genes than the human genome. It's more evolved, and it knows how to communicate in ways that we can't understand. But one thing I do know is that the plant knows who you are. The plant knows who I am. The plant knows who Travis is.
Absolutely.
And knows who we all are. So it's like, I don't distill plants and strains down to who bred them. I always pay respect to the guys who bred them, but that's a living being. And if that living being or that song is something I resonate with and allows me to connect with it, then I'm going to connect with it. And so I think the politics tends to put an undesirable tint on things that can normally be incredibly beautiful and beneficial for the rest of the cannabis community.
It's like music sampling. It's like we learned a lot of old songs we would never hear about, but they sample the song. And then if you love music, you'll be like, I wonder what that's from. And then you'll revisit, the bass chord, and then you'll get the full story.
And then you get new sounds.
That's
like
exactly
the best part of music is taking those old things and creating new sounds. Like we were just talking about Blockberry, with Blockhead, with this orange bomb in the super booth. It's like he's probably right now one of my favorite players. Dude just came out of nowhere. His work is world class. His terps are good. I like
orange bomb is crazy,
right? Because I didn't really taste super booth until I tried one of Travis's pens, the orange bomb pens. And I was like texting him, what the fuck is that orange flavor? Where does that come from? He's like, super booth, bro. And so then it made me really appreciate that work. But it's like that work is from strains that sampled from older strains, and he made like this new flavor and this new expression of the plant. And that's why I love the music analogy, right? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to mix flavors and mix sounds, make a new sound. And at the end of the day, what we're all hoping as breeders and as growers is we're just going to share it with the world and say, I like the way this tastes. I like the way this makes you feel. What do you think? And then if it catches on, like in the case of fucking Blockhead, Super Booth caught on, so it's like, all right, that's a sound people resonate with. And now you start seeing a lot more breeders starting to work with Super Booth in the same way that they're starting to work with Gelato or OG back
Absolutely.
in the day. So I think that music analogy is like, to me, is the only perfect analogy, one of the only perfect analogies I could use.
Yeah.
Other than food.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Ingredients, technique, and timing, right? So that's what separates a $30 steak from a $300 steak. And that's what separates a hit track versus something that's just gonna bomb. It's like the ingredients, like the selection of what you select, the ingredients, technique, and timing. The technique and how you employ mixing these ingredients, or and then the timing. Timing's everything, especially as growers and as breeders. The timing in which I select this the technique in which I'm going to share this with the world. And so it's just like that, those three pillars is kind of like what governs like anything that's cool, like music, food, and
Peep the technique.
yeah, for real. Yeah, that's a good one.
Actually, you just sparked a little question in me. The timing. I understand that, you know, you're spend most of your time in Mendocino and then Humboldt.
Yeah, no.
What is making you transition to the Michigan market and move to the Midwest?
People have been trying to get me to come out of Michigan for since probably 2014 is when I first started. People are like, hey, come out to Michigan. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. And then, you know, we're always going to make, let me just off the top, we're always making seeds in Humboldt. I'm always going to make seeds with OG Mike, right? But where I need to spend my time started evolving as the cannabis world went global. Mm-hmm. But back to reason why I came to Michigan is I came to Michigan because Tori, nice. And because of Frenchie. Nice. Shortly before Frenchie passed away, we did this documentary that was like his love letter to the farmer and hash making in the Emerald Triangle. And they did a showing of that film in Ann Arbor. And at the same day, when they were doing this world premiere, there was a showing in SoCal, and that's where I was spending a lot of my time because my family's from San Diego. But when I went to the Frenchie premiere in LA, like I was rubbed like really the wrong way. You know, I don't really get along with a lot of LA people. That's not really a vibe. Like, I'm more of like, I like hanging out up north or you know, hanging out in the cut. I'm like more of a country or a mountain dude.
Absolutely.
And so I came out to Michigan because I was like, well, it seems like a good opportunity to also meet Tori, but at the same time, I want to get away from the pretentiousness of what I felt in LA the first time there was a private screening of the movie. And I wanted to be around more people that were down to earth. And it was like the best decision I ever made. Because I made that trip, what, it was last year? Last year I made that trip. And I fell in love with Michigan. Yeah. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to come back. And then I went to Breeders' Ball. And then I was blown away because I was exposed to this underground organic growing culture that had the quality of the weed reminded me what the quality of weed was in the Emerald Triangle before the market crash. And that's kind of like something a lot of California growers lament. Is California used to be the king of cannabis. Most of the talent in the cannabis industry used to come from California. And now it's like California's, the regulations in the market is a completely crash. Right? A lot of people left. I'm actually one of the last people from my friends group to leave. So, you know, the big choice and why I came out here is I fell in love with the culture, the growing culture out here in Michigan. And I was like, I travel a lot. I consult all around the country. If there's a legal state, I've been there. Right? But stuck out about Michigan was a lot of the jars that were getting passed to me were world class. And I was meeting people like in Cali, you'd meet a lot of growers where it's go, grow, money, you know, because you're trying to survive. It's the most expensive state to run a business. But here in Michigan, a lot of the vibe that I was getting from growers was these motherfuckers are doing it for the love of the game. Yes. That's why that weed is good. And it's the love of the game. And I was on a podcast a couple of days ago where someone disagreed and I had to like back up my position. I was like, look, booths everywhere. Commercial booths everywhere. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just part of reality. But what I focus on is that culture and contingent of people that just do it for the love of the game, that want to see like, you know, it was disheartening in California because because the margin started thinning out, the price was crashing. The mental game of a lot of growers was, well, how little can I do and get away with achieving an okay product, right? Versus when I met this group of organic growers out here, it reminded me of what it was like in Humboldt, Mendo back in the day, where the margins were big, where your frame of thought was, what more can I do to make this plant a better expression? How much more effort can I give that contributes to my best possible effort as a grower or like an extract artist? And like I gravitated towards that, and I need to be around that culture because, bro, I was salty the last 2 or 3 years. That's fucking Tory, dude. I was kind of like this fucking Ebenezer Scrooge, you know? Because, and I realized that I felt alone on the mountain in Humboldt because a lot of my friends had left. You know, I feel like I left too late in a sense. because when I came out here to Breeders' Ball, I met like 5 people that I knew from Humboldt. I was like, "What are you doing out here?" They're like, "What are you doing out here?" Like, "We live out here. Don't tell anybody." I was like, "All right." And then I met some seed companies that came out here, and then you have breeders that hang out in Michigan that are starting to change the game on a global scale as far as genetics. And I think Tiki's a really good case in point for that.
Oh yeah.
That back in the day, you had to be from California to kind of be like this to kind of be this trendsetter or this big name.
Respect it.
You don't need to be in Cali no more. There's fire in Michigan. There's fire in New York,
Oklahoma,
Ohio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like that was a big choice why I came out here, and but coming out to Michigan was twofold. Is like I fell in love with it out here. It was definitely a lot friendlier to run a business. Like California is the most expensive business in the country, most expensive state in the country to run a business. Hawaii is number 2. So I'm just like, dude, I could have been fucking running my business in Hawaii, saving money. You know what I mean?
On the beach.
But then when I came out here, I looked at property and I was like, I've met the people. People are inherently, in my opinion, a lot nicer out here, a lot more friendly. Like everyone in Cali's up to like doing some kind of dirt. So there's like a little bit of somewhere it's like closed off, standoffish kind of vibe up there versus a lot of the vibe I get around here is like people seem a lot more welcoming and open. And
it's the Midwest hospitality.
I dig it, yeah, it's a nice change, but I needed to be closer to France because I'm building out a project in France, and we produce seeds in Colombia. So coming out to Michigan just hit all these boxes, right? Like I saved 6 hours off my flight on to France. I shaved 3 hours off my flight to Colombia. I saved 50% moving my business out here to do the breeding and selection. So, we were doing a lot of our breeding and selection outdoors in Humboldt. But now that, when I first started the seed company, 80% of my customers were all California outdoor growers and greenhouse growers. And now 98% of my clients and my partners, they're all indoor growers growing under LEDs. So, seeing the need to go back indoors to just stay relevant in the game. I'm just trying to stay relevant in the
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of good talent out there. And so, Michigan was definitely conducive to, I think it's definitely conducive to someone who's super passionate, looking to, still make an impact in the game.
So you, of course, you have your business in France. I personally believe, and I believe this for years since I experienced it in 2018, I thought that Michigan concentrate was just leaps and bounds by far just ahead of the game and the best, and there's no competition. And then so I'd honestly like to hear your opinion, especially from being so close to someone like Frenchie, who's been around arguably the best hash in the world.
Yeah.
And so what was that experience like, first off, being around the best hash and learning the processes of how to actually like create the best hash, and then coming to a place like Michigan that actually takes that process seriously as well?
The case in point with hash is what really drove it home for me for the quality that's here. And my sister is Frenchie's apprentice.
Hell
She's
yeah.
won the last 2 Emerald Cups.
Fuck yeah.
She won the Ego Clash 2 years ago, and placed this year. And when she came out to teach her first class here in Michigan like 3-4 months ago, I was like, yo, the hash is good out here. I'm gonna connect you with these people. And she's like, yeah, it's all right. It's whatever, I mean, she's in that kind of community where you have like Alice, you have, Brandon from 3rd Gen, who's a legend, you have, and now and still on the West Coast, you have the real Cannabis Chris, you have Trichome Tortoise, like these guys who are like really putting it on for the West Coast. And that's kind of like, my sister's peer group, right? Where she's used to smoking the best possible hash. Then she came out to Michigan, and she was like really brushing it off. She's like, we'll see, whatever. She texts me after she's only been in fucking Michigan for 2 hours. She's like, you were not fucking lying.
Yeah, dude.
Like, you were not fucking lying.
Yeah.
And then I saw her after her class. I went to go see her class, and she was like, dude. I was like, what? She's like, the hash is really fucking good. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
She was like, I really wasn't. And she teaches all around the world too. That's what's crazy. Legal or medical or recreational state, she's taught there, and she's sampled. You know, a lot of people when she comes to teach the class, like a lot of people come to bring their best. And so she's like, it's always been like, all right, still some of the best hashes in Cali, still some of the best hashes in Cali or Oregon. But when she came out here, she's like, holy fuck, these guys are on something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I gave her some of Travis's stuff from North Coast, and like, she opens the box and she sees the little cooler package. She's like, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah.
It's like the Michigan's like almost like the world's best kept secret.
Yes.
As far as quality, you know, and that's what I really liked about Travis, because when we first talked and we first had dinner, he was talking about how Michigan gets slept on. We have some of the best cannabis here. There's amazing breeders that are coming out of Michigan and influencing markets outside of Michigan that are bigger than Michigan's market, like you know, New York's market and California's market. You have these breeders going to Canada now. You know, put Michigan genetics in the hands of people who are growing and distributing through GACP and GMP channels, which are the channels that govern how legal countries trade amongst each other. And so it's like, you know, that was powerful to me. You know, like as a breeder, my job is to sift through and look through quality strains and things I connect with. And I try to apply that same thought process to the people I have in my life or places I try to put myself around. And that's one of the things I just found here. It was like, oh, y'all don't even know. People are like, and like Ross from Fresh Coast will tell me, like he's one of the big reasons I came out here, and he's like, stop telling people Michigan's awesome. He sent me a WhatsApp last night. He's like, dude, like, you know, but you still have to make the leap though to come out here. But it's definitely the best move, the best decision I've ever made for my career and my family. 100%.
I think one of the things to your points though, I think one of the unique things about Michigan is that the people like who like are in this initial first wave, like Travis, you just, you know, just understanding and creating that unique community that along with climate change, that about 10, 15 years, people are going to see this one of the best decisions that anybody could have ever made, because a lot of those places on those coasts are just not going to be viable for growing a lot of things. And so something that I wanted to ask just on a personal level was there's a lot of forest fires in California. Bro. Like it's like they're crazy. Bro. And I learned a crazy stat the other day that at the top of the canopies of the trees, they hit top speeds of 100 miles per hour.
Oh, yeah.
100 miles.
Yeah.
So then I was like, how can you not get away? And then I'm like, oh, that's how, because you have 100 miles per hour of a rushing fire tank coming at you.
You'd be fucked.
And so one thing that I know about you is that you are a volunteer forest firefighter.
Yeah.
And that's something I thought that was just always just super badass and super cool. I know firefighters, and so it is a crazy, actually, like, thankless job, because, like, especially a forest firefighter, the rigorous training is a different type of training that y'all have to go through. It's absolutely unreal. So with all that experience you have with that, there have been forest fires in Canada, like last year. It affected this whole entire region where our air quality, it wasn't safe to go outside for several days because the air quality was bad. I'm sure you're aware of some of those dangers.
Lung problems from the air quality.
Do you think you'll actually be able to be like a asset in that aspect, because you have a unique background of maybe how to not just combat but how to grow in when you have all of that those chemicals and just carcinogens in the air? Is that somewhere you could find your lane?
That like carbon filters are your best friend.
Okay.
And when we had greenhouses, I wish we had pictures and video of this because it was just madness. But I remember that's one of the reasons why I left. Right? You can't grow outdoors in greenhouse anymore and manage your risk like you did back in the day because the heaviness of the smoke, right? And the ash that comes from it. You know, it's like it's going to rain ash all over your plants. But we used to take, like, I remember like punching, 8, 14-inch holes in the wall of this, in the back of the greenhouses, and plumbing 14-inch fans, 14-inch fans, you know, all connected to you know, huge indoor carbon filters, just to minimize the amount of smoke and exposure your plants had to the forest fire. Like, I don't miss that, bro.
Yeah.
Like, every year, like, you know, like, as a breeder, like, you know, we'd put 20 to 30 racks just into the soil for testing plants, right? For 5-gallon pots. Like, we select in 5-gallon pots, and then all of us, and like, if that's just the soil, it's like our overhead for like the growing and the permits. Then all of a sudden everything's perfect, and then you have this fucking forest fire that completely it's actually wiped out a lot of farms, you know. But I'm gonna always miss that part because the community behind firefighting, I think it's a really cool story, and I have to share it because Humboldt's really unique in that respect, where the fire department that we were volunteering with was called the Palo Verde. I volunteered with the Alder Point Fire Department over on Murder Mountain. Or it's near Murder Mountain. It's not Murder Mountain. Like, the locals will always correct you on that. And then, but Palo Verde Fire Department, it was the first volunteer fire department in the country where it was completely funded by weed money. Right? We had imprints of weed leaves in the concrete foundation of our fire hall. And so the reason I became a wildland firefighter is for growers out there, it's a rite of passage that if you're gonna fucking grow a big crop and show up for your neighbor, it's like, that's the most solid character trait you could have out there. So tight. And the people I looked up to the most were like the big ballers and the big hustlers that were growing, you know, 1 to 2, 3,000 pounds a year, which back in the day, that was a lot of weight. And when the price was 24, you're talking about like dudes who are making, you know, $2 to $5 million every year. And that's not even like the biggest grower. That's one of his properties. But after meeting these guys and seeing that these mega ballers, who were mega ballers in my eyes back then, that they're all volunteer firefighters, right? My boy Josh over at Petrolia, he's the fire captain, or he was the fire captain over at the Petrolia Volunteer Fire Department. And he's still a first responder. He was one of the biggest growers in Humboldt at the time. When the county issued him his canopy permits, and this was before the county cap, this dude was juggling between 4 and 7 acres of canopy in Humboldt, when it was like most of the canopy you saw was maxed out at like ½ acre or an acre. But Josh was like that dude, that big ass grower who grew on like 5 properties, blowing it up, showing up to wildfires, bro. He would leave a trim scene because he was the first responder medically, right? And so like that was the culture in Humboldt. Like, we don't give a fuck if you're balling. Show up. Right, be a part of the community, and it was that character trait that was like that. I only saw there, and it's kind of like, you know, almost going to be a part of history. It's still there, but it's not like it was, right? Because like a lot of the community in Humboldt ended up leaving, but it was the most beautiful thing that you had this kind of culture that funded their own firefightings, right? And like the saying on our firefighting sweaters was really funny. It's like saving ourselves from ourselves. Right, because a lot of the forest fires were caused like either like, you know, by lightning, or some grower had some shit blow up, or a fucking greenhouse caught on fire. Next thing you know, the mountain's on fucking fire. So, yeah, man, that sucks about the wildfires out here. It's one of the reasons I chose to do my selection and breeding indoors versus doing outdoors. We're always going to do our seed production outdoors because it's the most efficient way to produce seed. There's a difference between seed breeding and selection, and then seed production. Right. Seed production happens after we have the finders, you know, the keeper females, the keeper males that we do in selection and breeding. And then once we find the winners and we make a cross and test that out, and we go, okay, that bangs. Okay, now this client over here wants 1 million seeds. All right, cool. Boom. Let's fucking get a bunch of plants started outdoors, use those same plants, and that's seed production. So we're always going to do that in Humboldt. But the breeding and showing people, because you have to sell it, right? You have to show, you have to open your jar like that jar right there, you know, or his jar, the crazy strain that we were smoking. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be able to open that jar and blow people away. And if that shit smells like fucking forest fire, it's like, you ain't getting far, bro.
Yeah, nah.
That was the problem.
This is woodsy, but more smoky woodsy.
Yeah, this forest fire.
This from Tennessee? Yeah. I'm going to ask you just kind of a basic question. what are you looking for in your breeding process? Just like, are you looking first for strength from like disease first?
Yeah.
You're looking for terps first. Like, what's the number one thing you're looking for when you're going hunting for?
It really depends on what I'm looking for in that selection, and I'll explain it with using Skittles as a case in point.
Okay.
Skittles is the ugliest plant to grow, hardest plant to grow.
Bird.
Doesn't want to yield. Its second job is getting powdered and mildew, right?
Oh shit.
But it's to me, it's my favorite smoke of all time. It's like got the best taste. It's got the best high. So there's something about the morphology and the structure that's in Skittles that where sometimes I'll guess like, well, maybe we need that structure to get to that flavor profile, right? And if we could isolate that, then how can we improve that later on, right? And another case in point is sour, right? So, or OGs. So I released a bunch of OGs, and so OG is classically known for having like these really thin, very brittle spaghetti noodle stems, like dark leathery green leaves. The bud expression is like this bright green expression with this really unique frost profile. So when I was breeding and selecting for OGs, right, like a lot of the traits when you're breeding a big, strong plant, like let's say Super Boof is like this really big, beautiful plant, right? Halle Berry is like this really big, beautiful plant. And so people tend to favor and select for those particular traits. But when I'm trying to zero in on something as definitive as OG, I'm going to select towards traits that have that unfavorable structure, like something really leggy, something that has those spaghetti noodle, really brittle stems, something, even though it's not favorable to a grower, I'm focused on the end goal, right? So if I'm going to reach the end goal, because growers, if something's dank enough, like Skittles or OG, something that traditionally grows like fucking dog shit, and it's really difficult to grow, growers are going to grow it because the market wants it, right? I'm trying to grow for smoke and unique terp profile. And so if that comes with the territory of having less than desirable structure, then it's something that sometimes I'll make an exception for, because maybe, and then if we can improve that, then I'll improve that. But if somebody says structure and vigor is the end all be all, that's a logical fallacy, because then you wouldn't have the success of Skittles. You wouldn't have the success of OG. You wouldn't have the success of sour, which is a really difficult strain to grow. It doesn't like really being grown in hydro. Right? People that grew sour in hydro back in the day really didn't get a really good expression. It was until you were growing sour in like living soil and organics, because it's a finicky strain. It's a hard strain. When you harvest it, it doesn't smell like much. But when you cure it, there's something about that.
It activates.
Yeah, so it depends on the end goal, like what I want. Or if I'm just taking a look, sometimes I'm just popping a strain just to kind of get a feel for, like, it's kind of like listening to an album for the first time. And you're like, oh, I like that. Let's explore that more. See what we could pair it with. And then it's just a matter of, do I know what I want or don't know, or am I going down a rabbit hole where we'll see where we end up. And I think a lot of breeding is, we'll see where we end up. I would argue that there's very, very few breeders on the market that have a goal in mind and hit that mark. I think it's really difficult to do that. I could do that with sour because I failed so many times at breeding sour, where I eventually got good at it because I was like, okay, I know 1,000 things not to do. If I just don't do these 1,000 things, then I'll eventually get in the right direction. But I think a lot of the time, a lot of what we discover is by accident, or by, I love strain A, I love strain B, I'm gonna put them together, and the next thing you know, you find an outlier in that population, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. So it really depends, when it comes down. It's like making music, right? I think if you ask an artist, when you're making a hit track, what do you do? I'm just like, I don't think there's a recipe for that. I think there's a recipe for, I'm going to connect with something that I love. I'm going to do it out of just love and devotion. And then if it fulfills any of my expectations and exceeds my expectations, then hopefully the hope is, if I share it with you, will it meet and exceed your expectations? So that's what it's really like music. Because, like, I know a few music artists, like, they'll be in the studio, this is the oh man, I'm so psyched. And then next thing you know, they release the album, and it's like it doesn't do that really. You know, so even if I love something, doesn't mean you're gonna love something. So that's always the gamble we have as breeders. It's like, is my taste in line with what the market wants? And the risk is my taste conducive to me being relevant in the market tomorrow? So that's like things that you really need to consider being a breeder. Right? But I think if you just do what you love, then the love of the plant, and that vibe, and that devotion you have to your craft is going to always put you in the right direction.
How did you decide to start to do projects with North Coast and Travis?
It was really the first time we met. I was like sleep deprived. I was up for like 36 hours at this time. He comes to the casino with Arden. Shout out Arden, super OG. And ends up being just one of the brightest guys I've met in the cannabis space. He's like really knows his shit, mega informed, and just like super passionate, right? And it's like, you know, for me, it's like, it's all about the passion. And it's just like, I don't know what this dude has or what he's doing, but it's probably good if he's this passionate. Next thing you know, I try to hash. We're smoking a donut. I'm bringing donuts back to California because of Tori. And all my friends are fucking pissed. It was like, bro, why is this way better than ours? You know what I mean? It was like, wait, this is from Michigan? And we're like, yeah. And then like, we're going around all over the country, and like motherfuckers are asking, like, I want the North Coast donuts. Remember that shit you let me try? I want that. And there's like the craftsmanship that goes into it, right? Like I used to make joints. Pre-Prop 64, like we had wooden tips made from ebony and rosewood that we had custom made from a furniture factory in India. That was all from scraps. So it was recycled wood. It was scrap anyway. So we was like, hey, how can we reuse these scraps? And then so we were actually hand rolling things, right? But it was really early on. I was really overwhelmed with the breeding, so I wasn't able to crack that code, right? So seeing how Travis cracked that fucking code, right? Not only in legalization where you're taxed and your margins are traditionally lower than it was before legalization, but he's managed to create this amazing product, hand rolled, but make the numbers work. So that was like, I'm in awe of that, because that was a bigger venture I had for 5 years, where we were known for having like these nice joints and fucking cigar boxes, celebrities all around LA. You know, I mean, there's people flying in on private jets, you know, to SFO to pick up boxes of our joints, right? And it was like, but we weren't able to make the numbers work. And, you know, that was definitely a fault of mine. So I've just been kind of enamored with like what Travis has been able to do. It's like one thing, it tastes like fucking 10 times better than our joints every day, right? They're consistent and they're hand rolled. And so it's like, for me, just from a business perspective, it's mind boggling. But he sources like the best possible flour, the best possible rosin. And then I'm trying all these fucking donuts, and you're like, dude, this like, I'm always asking, where are you getting this flour? Who's growing this? Like, can I give that guy seeds?
Yeah.
You know, all these growers. Yeah. Because this shit's fire, bro. And there's people that are super weed snobs from California, super weed snobs from fucking New York, you know, and they're all saying, dude, give me some more of those donuts. Like, I want to try some more of those. And it's like, if that's not a testament to the quality that's going into it, it's like, bro, can I just like hang out with you? You know what I mean? And see like who you're fucking hanging out with, because it's like you're hanging out with some world-class talent, right? Like, one day this is going to be a national thing. And a lot of other brands and hash holes that are, you know, are going to have a hard time competing with this level of quality. Because when me and Tori go to dispensaries a lot when we're back in California, and it's like, they don't taste like this. You know, there's a few, right? Like shout out Fidel, he does a really good hash roll. You know, some of my other buddies do a really good hash roll, but it's like with this, it's like when it's ubiquitous that everyone I'm giving it to, whether you're in Oklahoma or California, New York, and you're trying my head stash because it's my head stash and I'm sharing with them, and they're like, bro, how can I get some more? Well, you gotta go fly into Detroit and make it happen.
Yeah, no, for real.
And you gotta go meet Travis.
Yeah, for real.
So it's like, that's a blessing that he was even willing to, like, when I said, hey, I want to be able to give you some seeds, do you think you can give us to your growers? And when he said, yeah, I was like, fuck yeah. Because I think the hardest thing is finding dedicated enough growers that are able to put out product that fucking tastes like this. You know what I mean? Like, those are the guys I want to meet. You know? So, like, shout out fucking North Coast, bro.
Yeah, shout out North Coast. I thought it was like when I heard that I was like, well, it's just like a match made in heaven. Just like, I mean, I'm just thinking about just like the branding collaboration, just like North Coast
Bro, all his fucking
aficionado.
merch,
It's
dude.
just
Like, look
like
at this
it's
ashtray,
class personified.
right?
It's
He
literally
pulls up,
class
He pulls up
personified.
with a leather backpack with a cooler in it for
Come
his
on
hash,
now.
and it's embossed.
Come
It's like
on.
embossed leather.
Come
And
on.
like these are visions and dreams I always had.
Come on.
You know, because like we're known for having like, you know, Marijuana Venture, you know, think of what, but they published me and Frenchie as being, we were the first ultra high end cannabis brand.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Travis is doing right now, like, that's a legit ultra high end cannabis brand.
Yes.
You know, it's like branded bags, branded ashtrays, the attention to detail. It's like, you know, a lot of people look down on like luxury cannabis or high end cannabis. It's like, but as the industry continues to evolve, like there's gonna be that segment. Right?
Yeah.
We have it in clothes, we have it in alcohol, we have it in cars. We're gonna have it in cannabis.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Especially when this thing goes global.
100%.
So it's like, those are the things I always aspired doing, because we always like the, you know, we're aficionado. I used to sell cigars illegally. You know what I mean? That's like one of the reasons, because if it wasn't for cigars, I wouldn't have got into this. But when I see how North Coast presents himself, it's like, it's better than how we ever dreamed of doing it. You know what I mean? And so, you know, we have leather packaging. Our seed packaging is like leather packaging. So when he pulled out an embossed leather backpack, like it's like the pattern, like the Louis Vuitton pattern, like it wasn't just embossed in one place. The whole fucking backpack was embossed.
Like it's pressed in there.
It was insane. It's like the amount of work that went into just making the bag, the amount of work that goes into making the boxes, the slide top boxes that you put those things in. Like these are things we did with John Carlos back in the day, like 10 years ago, but never to that fucking level, that refinement that Travis has done. So it's like, you know, I'm really not trying to dick ride. This is from someone who's tried doing that, was passionate about it, that failed at it, because I'm no longer doing it today. I'm just breeding. But he's doing exactly. See?
Fucking humidor.
Yeah. I'm gonna show.
I mean, come on now. I mean, come on.
See?
Come on.
I think the time is right for stuff like that now, because when we came out of it, it was still, you know, we're still embryonic, but it was like really embryonic back then. When we came out, people were like, dude, what are you trying to do? Like, that's not our culture. But it's like, no, there's these clients. It was like, I couldn't like necessarily go online and be like, oh, I got this musician and this actor. They're privately buying these joints from me. I know those motherfuckers will buy these all day long.
Absolutely.
The shit I used to make. You know what I mean? Because I think just,
when
you look at the design, right? Like I have a design and manufacturing background. It's like we did cones. This one's like this fucking fat honker with this custom twirled glass tip, right? Where it's like the flow dynamics, the pull, the resistance,
the weight.
It's perfect. It's like a cigar, right? Yeah. Like when you're around people who really love cigars, they're looking at the ash. They're looking about how much resistance is in the pull, right? And you're like getting flavors of hazelnut, cocoa, leather, earth, coffee from a fucking tobacco leaf. And now we have something as complex as cannabis, where it's like, oh, now it's on a completely different grade.
You can you have a vessel to actually enjoy it in that same way.
So if we're going to celebrate cigars in that really high refined manner, why can't we celebrate cannabis that way? And that's kind of like why Aficionado has always tried to be like this high end thing. We were the first with like a big, you know, whatever packaging line. We were first with like a wooden box. We wanted to show people
the fucking wax label, like the wax seal is just chef's kiss touch. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
I got that from OG Mike because he was burying his seeds in rice in mason jars and he was dipping them in fucking beeswax before he buried them.
Oh, shit.
And so I was like, well, and I like Maker's Mark too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I like Maker's Mark too. So I was like, all right, cool, let's do that. And it's always stuck. And it's been like that since the beginning. You know? So.
And the old school freaking, oh, no. Be careful. The old school wax seal. Oh man, like, sheesh. Yeah. I'm so excited about this collaboration.
I mean, I got mad respect for breeders that put their stuff in regular packaging because that's who they are, and I respect and admire that. And the same thing with like pre-roll companies or hash companies. But for me, it's like we put so much capital into just developing the strain and breeding the strain. Like I make the seeds the year prior and I test it. And then after it's being tested, because we really don't have the outside testers. Like after I test it, it's like, if this is good enough, it's like the investment on that strain that took me to develop is crazy, especially when we're doing seed production outdoors on that particular strain. So it's like, if we're spending all this capital breeding strains, maintaining a company, it's like, well, why don't I try to at least have the same kind of parallel efforts that, like, say, an alcohol company would do? You know, because if I'm selling it at this price point, then I want the expectation to be X. And that's just my vision, because I still buy packs of Mylars that are like $300-$400 a seed pack just because that breeder's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's just, as far as me, like the way I make music, you know, the way I want to kind of communicate, it's always been just kind of that kind of essence. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's kind of our identity right now. It's not because we think we're better or less than other seed companies. I definitely don't think we're better than other seed companies. I just think we're different. We all make different music. It's okay if the song sucks, but if the song makes people lose money, that's a different thing, bro.
That's different. That's real different.
As a breeder, you're never going to put out, everything's not always going to be a hit. You're always trying to reach it, just like music artists. Sometimes you get the hit, sometimes you don't. You know, I think at the end of the day, we're just like, all right, let me not fuck up someone else's grow. You know, it's like the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
I think that's the best service that you could have in your heart as a breeder. Like having the best interests of people at heart. Because if you have their best interests, and you know you're not going to put out bullshit that's going to harm on them or cause them problems in their grow, you know. Yeah, because it's expensive to grow right now.
Hell yeah.
It's not cheap.
Hell yeah. You waste several fucking months to some herms, and
you
you're
can save money
fucked.
doing, like we said, KNF and Jadam. Then now you're spending time. Either way, you're paying a price.
Yeah. Got the triangle.